You need something? You good? Okay. Welcome everyone to the May meeting of the Brooklyn Borough Board. I feel like it's been ages since I've seen you all last, and ages is like 2 weeks ago. Thank you for coming tonight. We have a relatively short meeting, so we'll try to get right to it. But before we begin, let's take roll call. Start with the community boards. Community Board 1. Community Board 2.
Robert Harris representing Shirley McRae, and if I may add, I can't stay very long, so if it makes my departure any more graceful, skipping ahead to item 4, Ms. McRae or I would be happy to serve.
Thank you. Community Board 3. Community Board 4. Community Board 5.
Present.
Community Board 6. Community Board 7. Community Board 8. Community Board 9. Community Board 10. Community Board 11. Community Board 12. Community Board 13. Community Board 14. Community Board 15. Community Board 16. Community Board 17.
Present.
Community Board 18. Councilmember 11.
Martine Sarsi, representing.
Community, Councilmember Reynoso. Councilmember Cumbo.
Brian Cunningham, representing.
Community Board. Councilmember Cornegie. Councilmember Espinal. Councilmember Menchaca. Councilmember Lander. Councilmember Eugene. Councilmember Mealy. Councilmember Barron. Councilmember Gentili.
Jake Oliver for Councilman Gentili.
Councilmember Greenfield. Councilmember Williams. Councilmember Mizell. Councilmember Traeger.
Ethan wants to go Gravely, representing.
Councilmember Deutsch.
Charles Dunn representing.
Councilmember Mateo. Borough President Adams, presented by the council. Oh, terrific. Name? Ava. Okay. And just a note, can Ava and Jake and who's here from Councilmember Mealy's office? You guys can see me after the meeting. We just need you to fill out some forms to designate yourselves as representatives moving forward. Okay? Terrific. So we have 18 members of the Borough Board here present. Quorum, 34 members. We have a quorum. We can proceed. We're all good. Next, I'm going to move to entertaining approval of minutes of Borough Board held on April 24th, 2014. Everyone received a copy of the minutes prior to the meeting. Are there any corrections that need to be made?
Corrections for Councilmember 11, last name is S-A-R-C-I.
I'm sorry?
Correction for Councilmember 11, last name is S-A-R-C-I.
Okay, got it. Any other corrections to be made? Is there a motion to approve the minutes as amended? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Terrific, great. So before we go into our next agenda item, there's just a couple of quick announcements the Borough President asked me to make. First and foremost, for those of you that didn't know, the Borough President convened last month his Renewable and Sustainable Energy Task Force here at Borough Hall, which is a collaboration of 15 city and state agencies, as well as 6, and counting, nonprofit leaders and think leaders on the issue of renewable and sustainable energy throughout the borough, with the hope of producing a roadmap for Brooklyn's renewable and sustainable energy future. And as part of that initiative, we're going to be rolling that out in the coming weeks. Part of that initiative will include trying to make Borough Hall the first LEED certified Borough Hall building in New York City. And that's a very lengthy and a very complicated process, but we are engaging in that right now. And it's our hope that we can really promote sustainable energy usage, energy efficiency, sustainability measures throughout the borough. And if we can do it here, we can do it, anywhere. So that's a high priority for the borough president right now. Also, as you may or may not know, there was recently a bill introduced in the city council to create a municipal identification program throughout the city. And at a hearing last week, the borough president, represented by the deputy borough president, offered Borough Hall as a processing site to award those IDs or grant those IDs to people who need them. Because Borough Hall is Brooklyn's oldest public building, and it is a landmark and everyone knows to come here and centrally located, we feel it would be a great location, out of many others under consideration, to offer that service for those who don't have access to other forms of identification. And lastly, last week, in advance of the mayor's plan that he unveiled yesterday on affordable housing, the borough president last week unveiled part of his land use policy process, the upzoning of the Broadway corridor. And he has adopted a policy of promoting upzoning where appropriate in order to create more density. We're running out of land across Brooklyn. I think everyone knows that. So the only place to build is up. And the borough president is eager to look at locations where we continue to do that to make housing affordable for all of our 2.5 million residents, which is a lot. That makes us the 4th largest city in the country. So with that, just wanted to share those quick things with you all. We're going to move on to our second agenda item of the evening, which is a presentation and discussion by Car2Go.
Thank you so much.
And Tom McNeil from Car2Go will be taking it over.
Good evening. My name is Tom McNeil. I'm here from Car2Go. And before I begin, I just really want to thank the Borough President's office for all their help and support and for having us here this evening. Really appreciate it. So Car2Go is a car sharing company, and we are currently up and running in several cities throughout the U.S. We're in DC, Miami, Austin, San Diego, Portland, Seattle, Denver, Minneapolis, and Columbus. And the great thing about Car2Go is we're made up of smart cars, and it's a convenient company. How you use Car2Go is we have an app that everyone will be able to download and use, and you can make a reservation right there on your phone. You could use the car for as long as you want. Our app has easy car location technology. Our app shows where all our available cars are. And the greatest thing about Car2Go is there's no need to return to a designated spot. We're a one-way car sharing company, which means if we were up and running today in downtown Brooklyn and you were using a Car2Go, let's say you wanted to go down to Coney Island, you could drive the car all the way down to Coney Island, find a legal parking spot, and end your rental. There's no need to bring the car back. That's really what separates us from other car sharing companies. And what we try to do in every city is that not guarantee, but we try to make it so that there's no more than a 5-minute walk between each and every car. Another great thing about Car2Go is that it's affordable. We pay for the gas, the insurance, and the parking. There's no monthly payment. It's obviously cheaper than owning your own car. There's no minimums, meaning each and every year you don't have to pay to be a member. It's a one-time fee. And usually within the first 6 months of our launch date, we waive that fee. So members in your community will be able to sign up for Car2Go and not pay anything. And you pay as you go. You pay when you use the car. And that's it. And this is how it works. Each of our members get a member card. They hold that up to the dashboard, which will allow them access to the vehicle. They'll enter in their PIN. They'll check the condition of the car. We ask everyone to rate the car, whether it's clean inside or whether or not it's okay on the outside. And then you just get in and go. And like I said, you'll be able to park in a legal, safe spot, and you can end your rental. And we're 24/7. You'll be able to use Car2Go whenever you want. I was an article in the New York Times talking about car sharing and mentioning Car2Go. In New York, parking is going to be different than in other cities, but we would come to an agreement which would make sense for us and the city. We want to work with the city to come to an agreement. And our plan is to launch Car2Go in New York, in Brooklyn. We think Brooklyn has the great density, the population that we're looking to launch our services in. So what Car2Go can do is really complement the existing infrastructure in New York. There's subways, there's buses, but we can go in areas that the subway doesn't reach or that the buses don't always run. And we'll be able to eliminate the commuting times around the borough. We all know that it's easy from Brooklyn to get from Brooklyn to Manhattan, but it's not always easy to navigate between the different neighborhoods. Public transportation doesn't always go there, and that's something that Car2Go will be able to do. So our Brooklyn proposal is 33 square miles. We're looking to launch up to 400 cars. That wouldn't be right away. It would be in 50-car increments. And we're going to have 15 to 20 locally based employees, plus contracts with local service providers. And we'll be reimbursing the city for parking fees paid to the city or to parking garages. These are some of the neighborhoods that we're looking to be in. And this is a map of our launch home area. So you'll be able to rent a car in any one of these community boards and end your rental within the home area. Does that make sense to everyone? Does anybody have any questions so far?
I have a question.
Yes.
What was the thinking behind the initial launch area?
I'm sorry?
What was the thinking behind the initial launch area?
Sure. So these are some of the areas that we're looking at. What's great about Car2Go is that we can expand our areas easily. We can't launch all of Brooklyn all at once. So this is what we came up with, but we can, once we're up and running, we can certainly expand our services. And we would love to meet with every community board that might not be on the map now, but we'd love to have a conversation to see once we're up and running if there are customers there, whether or not people in the community wants it.
You said you use your app on your phone
Yes,
to find out
where the available cars are.
and then you just go there.
Then you just go there, you can reserve the car, and you use your member card to get access into the car. And what other questions? What do you seem hesitant?
Suppose someone takes it and parks it and get a ticket. Who pays for that ticket?
Well, if the customer parks it illegally, they would get the ticket.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, what if you were to park it legally in a spot, and then 2 days later, because of alternate side, that becomes
Right.
a legal spot?
So in areas that have alternate side parking on, let's just say 2 days a week, where it's Monday on one side and it's Thursday on another, we ask that 24 hours in advance, so Sunday, you wouldn't be able to park on that Monday spot. But then you would be able to park it on that Wednesday spot on Sunday, and it's up upon the company to move the car. In which we have that technology, and we have the ability to do it. And
You track where your cars are. And
Actually, we know where the cars are at all times.
Just to give a flavor too, real quick. And you guys can pass this around. Like, this is Washington, D.C., and it gives you where all the cars are at any point in time. So when you talk about reserving a car, trying to locate a car, the fleet team's trying to clean cars, move cars if there's issues with alternate side parking. This is the public app. We also have internal apps to help facilitate some of the fleet movements.
Yes, sir.
I'd take a little bit tackle a different question. I'm looking at income and demographics real quick. I know the borough quite well. Apparently, you're launching your program, lack of a better word, in more affluent parts of the borough. Because I looked at those different boards. It's apparent to me that you either don't want to take a chance, or you have decided to go to the less affluent parts of the borough.
We're certainly open.
And therefore you are excluding, visually, I'm being kind of devil's advocate here, parts of the borough that perhaps are not quote unquote as affluent as other parts of the borough. And that strikes me a little bit odd.
This is our original game plan, but we are certain to open.
This is how we
Right.
typically launch. To open up a borough at 60 square, 70 square miles is very difficult.
That's fine. Why did you decide to launch to the right of that photo, which is the less affluent parts of the borough?
High density is a main focus where main business locations are located, things of this nature where people are targeting to go to and from work, it's a starting point. Same thing we did in Seattle. We target a location. We also then look where people want to go. So we begin to-
I'll rephrase my question then a little bit differently. In those parts of the borough, as I look at that map, which is to the left of the borough, there are people in that part of the borough that I would say, I would drop the word of affluence, but I would say people that would be more than happy. I look at some of my fellow chair people representing, and I think they would agree with me that this is a little bit, lack of a better word, a little discriminatory in terms of the way I look at the borough. And I think there are people that are
If you look
upset
some of
with me.
the neighborhoods listed on here, these are the other neighborhoods that we're looking into having our services. And like I said, we are willing and back to the
just so you can point out so we can be better aware of where you're looking at.
Right.
I don't see 17 up there.
right. 17 is not on it, but we're more than willing to come in and
I
have a
think
conversation with Community Board
I think
17.
demographics in terms of income plays a big part of business, and I think to the right of that green line or that shaded green, I would say you should have started there.
So just start on the right side?
What?
Just start on the right side of what you're looking
Yeah.
for, and not
Yeah.
on the left side, or are you talking about encompassing the entire borough?
Well, I can understand your perspective from this perspective, but I'm looking from
Like I said,
a human perspective.
we are open, and we want to sit down and have a dialogue with everyone and to see where you think Car2Go would work best.
If I can just interject for a second?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
So one of the things that we were going to mention as part of this presentation, I have a somewhat related, we have a map here. You can kind of see the lines where the subway lines end. You can see all these outer areas of the borough are kind of underserved by mass transit options and subway lines primarily. Of course, there are buses, but buses are a completely different beast. Especially in the southwestern parts of Brooklyn, southern parts of Brooklyn, southeastern parts.
Right.
If you want to market this as a way to attract people who need that option for transit,
Absolutely.
the areas that we're talking about on the map are primed for that because there are no, some of these neighborhoods are
Right.
places where you walk 15, 20 blocks
Right.
and catch a bus to catch a train.
Mhm.
Whereas down by Borough Hall, you can catch any single train you want to get anywhere you want in New York City.
So just to use Seattle as an example, we launched within a confined area, and within a year, Mike, how much have we increased?
Increased about 30 to 40%. So this is partially an issue of operations. To bring
Right.
1,000 cars.
We couldn't do
between-
the entire borough all at once. We don't have it's just not possible.
Of course.
Can I,
This is the, yes.
and I appreciate, questioning, the line of questioning, because when I first seen it went up, I felt
Absolutely.
excluded, my whole entire district,
Mhm.
right? But my question is surrounding the question of affordable. I noticed that you mentioned that this is something that is more affordable.
Yes.
What is affordable?
The current pricing is 41 cents per minute with price breaks at an hour of $14.99, and then daily price breaks as well. But what we see is people use 90% of our rentals are under 30 minutes.
And that average to about how much money?
So 41 cents a minute, 10-minute ride is about $4.10 plus taxes. So
It's fuel and insurance.
Right, and we
Yeah.
cover the gas, the insurance, and the parking. So compared
There's an
to,
all-
Again, once you say you're going shopping, I'm standing this line. Once you go in shopping, take your car from the start point to the store, supermarket, and shut the car off, go into the store to shop. You're not being charged for the minute time while you're shopping, only when you're in the vehicle itself. And let me just suggest one thing in response to the questions we were hearing about location. What I would hope is that as a result of this meeting, if we could have recommendations for other neighborhoods and other community boards give them to Tom before we leave, and then we'll put it back into the mix and revise and think about revising what we're doing. Purpose of this meeting is to get that kind of specific feedback that will enable us to come to a final conclusion, which we have not done yet.
So just to clarify, so you exit the car, you don't have to end your rental, but you can end your rental.
right, so
And-
if you don't end your rental, you'll
Right.
still be paying for the time that you're,
That you're parked.
yes.
Oh, so it's not a situation where, I'm going in the store and I don't know, maybe somebody might take this car from the spot.
As long as you don't end your rental, you have the key, that car will remain there. What
And
you
I
could,
also, I'm sorry, no, please.
No.
Oh, no, I just sort of wanted to echo the sentiments of some of the other folks about, the issues with this map. And also, I mean, just sort of what you said about increasing access, places without public transportation.
Absolutely.
The places that are left off happen to be the places that are in most dire need of transit options.
Right. And like I said, within the first year of Seattle, we increased, again, what was the percentage?
30 to 40%.
30 to 40% within 1 year.
But I think
I
we're getting
understand it happens to be-
recommendations
Right.
from you
Yeah,
everything
and it's
you
funny
know.
because my principal's district, it happens to be completely included, but I still, there are definitely some,
Absolutely.
some
And
fallout.
we wish we could be able to launch our services throughout the entire district all at once. It just, we can't, but we want to work with each and every community board to see where it makes sense to have Cardigan.
And when do you plan on rolling out when do you plan on launching the service?
So we look to late summer, early fall.
Sorry?
Late summer, early fall. would
Of
be
this
our
year,
target.
2014.
Correct, absolutely.
And if you wanted to roll out to the maximum 400, how long would it take just up to that?
And so that's targeted off of kind of membership. Instead of just taking 400 cars, throwing them in the borough and leaving them and having a chance of a car sitting on a residential street for 72 hours and taking up parking, we'll look at the membership base. So you may see 200 initially, and then as we see membership increase, we'll put them in increments of 50 depending on how fast.
Okay.
I would assume Brooklyn would be a very fast borough to grow, like Seattle or Vancouver or Washington, D.C. So it wouldn't surprise me within 3 months if there's more cars.
You keep coming back to Seattle, Washington. Seattle, Washington is a different animal
Sure.
than local New York.
Understood.
I've been to Seattle, a completely different animal. It's kind of
It's
hard to say.
This is just to give an example of how much we could grow within a year. And I think Brooklyn will even surpass Seattle and how far we can grow and
The
expand.
bigger storyline really is for us is that we have the ability and the resources to grow as quickly as Brooklyn wants to grow.
Right.
I mean, in Seattle, we just used an example because there was rapid escalated growth with the city, with residents of the community, and we were able to keep up to that, to a point where we actually had the city coming to us and saying, hey, can you get more cars, can you get more cars?
But we're also in East Coast urban centers, Washington DC, Miami,
Yep.
and others. So the experience ranges from West Coast, East Coast, everywhere between Vancouver. How many cities are we in now?
13 in North
13 in
America.
North America.
26 worldwide.
I'll
Yes.
yield.
So I have my phone.
Mhm.
I wanna go get one of these cars, so I have
Yes.
to go in this neighborhood to get it, because I live in Flatbush.
Right. This is where,
So it
like
may
we
take
said,
me-
initially,
Right, so it may take me an hour to go
now you
here.
can take your car, if you car within this area, and bring it outside the area.
And still do
just-
the same thing and park it and someone will come get it.
You can't park it outside of this area. You could
Oh,
you could do a
okay.
stopover. You could do a
Can't leave
stopover,
it with finality.
but you can't end the rental outside of the area
Outside.
for now. Right.
For
So-
now.
Right.
So it'll take me an hour from Flatbush to come and get the car, because Brooklyn is huge. It takes
Absolutely.
me an hour and a
Yep.
half to, I live in Flatbush, but I work in
Mhm.
Bedford Stuyvesant, so it takes me an hour.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna go on my phone, find out, go here, which is gonna take me an hour, then go shop someplace else, and then bring it back, and then I have to get on the train or the bus to go home.
Right. So for the initial launch, that wouldn't.
So then I
make-
wouldn't, right.
Right. That wouldn't
Okay.
make much sense. But as we expand, certainly.
Okay, my question is surrounding,
Cars being used throughout an area.
Any other questions?
We ran out of business cards, so if you have
Yes,
more
I have more.
cards.
I have more.
Question.
Yes.
I apologize for being
No.
late. What's the cost?
Sure. So we're talking about the rates before.
Yeah, the current rates are at 41 cents a minute, $14.99 per hour. Most of our, 90% of our rentals are at 30 minutes.
And we pay for the gas, the insurance, and the parking.
How about towing fees? Do you pay for the cars towed?
So if it's our fault, yes. If the members park in a towaway zone and they left it there, then we will reimburse the city first, and then we'll pass it on to
So we encourage no parking at hydrants, bus stops, and the like.
the large education rental campus. There's also cards inside, green cards to give people ideas of where they can and can't park in parking zones, like 15 minutes, service zones or drop-off zones, these kinds of places.
Thank you.
Yes.
There are today bus routes that didn't exist a few years ago, specialized. You can park there, you can drive there, 7 to 10, or 7. Will you include maps in the car so that people people know that to do that, you're gonna get a sort of picture of your car taken.
Yes,
And,
we provide maps in the car of where you can and cannot park. And we also, in areas where,
More than park, drive. So for instance, I'll give you an example, Nostrand Avenue, which is a major thoroughfare in this borough, Rogers Avenue, they have bus lanes, and they'll take a picture of your car. If you drive in those lanes, and the streets for Livingston Street here.
So similar to that in-car insert that has multiple pages and maybe no parking signs, these 15-minute service signs, tow-away zones, picking up food else, food things like that, where you should be driving as well is an opportunity as well, which would be a little special to
Should be your top page, because you move quite quickly if you drive in a bus lane. Trouble is you get a fat ticket.
thank you.
Any other questions?
Would be like an HOV and some.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate your offer to meet with everyone.
Yep,
you know,
I'll
afterwards.
hand out the rest of my cards, and like
Yeah.
I said, I'll be in touch. And if you think your community board wasn't on there, but you think Car2Go would be great for the community board, please, we'll set a meeting up and we'll start having those conversations.
And we definitely encourage the community boards and the council members' offices to have those conversations. We think that this is another exciting service to offer Brooklynites, and that's why we asked Car2Go to come here and talk to us today about what their ideas are, especially as you saw on that map, the number of gaps that we have in our transportation grid, whether it's trains, buses, or even ferry service. We'd love to create these additional links for people to be able to get across the borough, get into the city, and get elsewhere as easily and conveniently and affordably as possible. So, these are all, there's no one solution to transportation problems, but if you kind of build a system piece by piece, this could be a piece of that system as well. So, we wish you guys a lot of luck, and we thank you for listening to us and the community's input.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, moving along, our next agenda item is a presentation by Think Brooklyn. Think Brooklyn is an organization, you may have heard of it before. It was formerly called the Center for the Study of Brooklyn, based out of Brooklyn College. And Gretchen Maniveau is going to be, the director of Think Brooklyn, is going to talk to us tonight about how your council members' offices or how your community board offices could use the data services provided by Think Brooklyn in really creative and innovative ways. So you all have a bunch of handouts already, and there's one more I'm going to hand out. One is for community board members, one is for council members. So I'm going to start the community board one on this side of me. I'm going to put the council member one on this side of me, and let's make sure that it gets around and you swap. And it says it on top, it says city council or community board. It's almost the same, it's just a little bit of a different focus based on the needs of your offices. So we'll start here. And I'll turn it over to Gretchen.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? Good. Beautiful spring day. Finally. My name is Gretchen Maniveau. I'm the executive director of Think Brooklyn. And I really appreciate you all inviting me to be here this evening. I wanted to talk a little bit about our work as an organization and talk about a couple proposals that we have forth as well. So please feel free to stop me and ask questions as I'm going through the content of the presentation, and then we'll also take some time to look at some of the handouts that we are distributing now. So I'm just going to jump right in. So Think Brooklyn, data and strategy for the social good. We are now serving all of New York City as of 2014, and many people ask, are you going to change your name? We're very proud of being from Brooklyn, so we'll have to see. Okay, so Think Brooklyn's work is community-driven, and it's also participatory. We are not an ivory tower organization. We don't do research just for the sake of doing research. All of the work that we do has been requested by nonprofit organizations, elected officials, local government agencies, residents, and it's grounded in those that groundswell of requests. We provide access to affordable, rapid, and reliable data analysis, data visualization, assets and needs assessments, strategic planning, program evaluation, and community resource directories. Our work empowers nonprofits, local government, business, researchers, and media in New York City and beyond to develop compelling funding proposals, high impact and sustainable programming and services, and influential advocacy initiatives. Related to the compelling funding proposals, over the last 6 to 7 years, we've helped community-based organizations in Brooklyn alone leverage over $3 million by using our data and working with them to strategize for their funding proposals. And that's mostly money coming in from the national arena and state and private dollars, so really augmenting the funding that we have here in New York City. So our approach, again, is community-driven and participatory. We come at this from the perspective that our constituencies are the experts. We're simply striving to fortify their already powerful voices with the vital information and strategic lens that we provide to our work. One very unique aspect of the data and the information that we provide is we provide it at the neighborhood level. We all live, work, go to school at the neighborhood level. That's where life happens here in Brooklyn and in New York City. But unfortunately, much of the data and information that's out there are only available at the citywide or borough-wide level. So why are we doing this work? We know that there are vast disparities among neighborhoods in Brooklyn. There's unavailable data at the neighborhood level. This means that very important decisions when it comes to resource allocation, programming and services, public policies, they're often being made in a vacuum, and they're not able to be proactively strategic or data-driven or substantively informed by the populations they impact. And this is where Think Brooklyn steps in. So we combine the quantitative with the qualitative, resulting in the most comprehensive and accurate information possible for our clients. So there are different types of services that we provide. Again, we're a nonprofit organization ourselves, and we're mission-driven, so we try to make this work as affordable as possible. So we mine and analyze data. We look at public and program data sets, but what I mean by program is if organizations have internal databases that they're trying to make sense of and figure out how to tailor and look at for their programming and services. We do database design, customized data reports, the Brooklyn neighborhood reports, which I'll talk a little bit about in a moment, trends reports. We provide access to various data sets for those clients who are more tech savvy and want to analyze their own data, as well as web resources. Once we analyze the data, our clients most often will ask us to visualize the data. So that might be through graphs, charts, infographics, maps. They want to make it as palatable as possible and accessible as possible to their constituencies, and also as compelling as possible if they're trying to make convincing arguments using the data. We also conduct very large-scale community assets and needs assessments, and I'll talk about some examples with our Promised Neighborhoods work over the last 4 years here in Brooklyn. Those often include multi-step phases, so trying to figure out what are the assets of the community, what are the needs. We do data analysis, we do primary surveying of constituents, we conduct focus groups, and then again, we'll visualize the data. We also do strategic planning initiatives and help to develop interventions and solutions along with our community partners. We work with groups to help them with their program evaluation and performance evaluation so they can recalibrate the work that they're doing, figure out what's working and what needs to change. And then we also provide directories to help residents or funders connect with various nonprofit organizations through our Brooklyn Organizations Directory. We also have a community board directory and an elected official directory. We thought we should have these all in one place so they're most accessible. Now, as with a lot of the data, they're in vastly different arenas, and it takes a lot of time to kind of navigate the web to find it all, so we just put it all in one place. So in 2013, last year, the Centers for the Study of Brooklyn, the former staff, founded Think Brooklyn. Over the last 6 to 7 years as a staff, we've worked to leverage nearly $3 million in partnership with the Brooklyn-based community organizations who we serve. We've produced lots of different customized data reports and responded to hundreds of requests for data. We work with over 80 data sets, and that's data about the economy, or youth ed education, housing. We launched the first ever Brooklyn neighborhood report, so you have an example of an all Brooklyn report, and I believe it's Community District 8? Yep. There, so we'll go into a little bit more detail about that. as well as our proposal to scale and replicate those reports citywide. And we have a discretionary funding proposal to City Council. And we're also introducing a sponsorship opportunity for community boards here in Brooklyn and across the city for these as well. We've also implemented 10 major strategic planning and community assets and needs assessment projects over the last several years. We've posted over 100,000 hits to our website, in particular Brooklyn Organizations Directory, so that we know that there's really a high demand for this. For our Civic Engagement Report, which was the first of our Brooklyn Trends series, we had about 3,000 downloads when that was released. We talked a little bit about the Brooklyn elected officials and community board directories. We also get a lot of requests for data from media, which is important to us because we want them to not just use sound bites, but actually use accurate data about the populations here in Brooklyn. And we're pretty pleased to announce that in 2014, we're now serving all of New York City. So some examples of current and recent projects. Who here has heard of the Promised Neighborhoods projects? Okay, some yeses. Okay, so the first ever here in Brooklyn was in Sunset Park, and we worked with Lutheran Family Health Centers, who was the sponsor, to apply for the funding. We were thrilled to receive it, and so we were charged with designing and facilitating the community assets and needs assessment for that $500,000 grant from the U.S. Department of Education. After we had a successful year of planning with them, we were approached by Canva in Flatbush, and they said, we want to do this too, and we said, great. So we applied again, and miraculously, we got the second Promised Neighborhood project here in Brooklyn, and we now are working with Cypress Hills, so the third here in Brooklyn in 3 years, which is unprecedented. It's just amazing. There were only 10 across the country that were awarded, so it really speaks to the savvy and the capacity of these community-based organizations. It also speaks to the need and our ability to articulate that need at a very granular level and to customize the zones in which we're talking about what the needs are of the community for each of these projects. We've done a lot of work with Bed-Stuy Restoration Corporation, most recently for their NOF application, Neighborhood Opportunities Fund, as well as the Food and Fitness Partnership. We were the program evaluators for that. We worked with a group called Heart of Brooklyn, which is the 6 major arts and culture institutions in Brooklyn, to provide them with information around looking at language barriers so that they could do a better job of reaching out to their constituencies. And we've also worked with a coalition for the improvement of Bedford-Stuyvesant recently for their results-based accountability work. So again, looking at a very granular level, looking at data at the census tract level, so they can take a saturation approach to providing services and look at just a few discrete census tracts within their catchment area to do that. So you can look at these testimonials at your leisure, and I'm happy to provide more if they're of interest. So how can we help you? We've outlined the type of work that we can do for the nonprofit community and what that informs for governments, and I've detailed this as well on the, does everybody have, it says Brooklyn Neighborhood Reports at the top, and it should either say for chairpersons at the top or for the city council.
Those are the forms we just handed out.
Yeah, so on the second page of that, there are bullet points, and we speak to how we can help, in particular, city council. So when we're talking about looking at city council and how we can help, we can provide data for constituency assessments, database design, polling, campaigns for community boards. We can provide help with district needs statements or ULURP. And when I say assistance, that's either from the data perspective, so getting you the numbers, visualizing those data, but also thinking strategically in the qualitative aspect of those in case there's a need to engage participants in the community around making decisions. We work with local businesses as well, researchers, and media. So any questions about our type of work? I'm just going to take a few quick minutes to go through the infographics, and then I want to talk about the Brooklyn Neighborhood Reports, and then we'll be at the end of the presentation. Okay. So about Brooklyn, we all know we have 18 community districts. Each, there's an average population of about 140,000. So when we're talking with groups outside of Brooklyn and outside of New York City, as the Car2Go folks here, right, we want to talk about the sheer volume, the scale of Brooklyn, and I don't think folks often get that who don't live in New York or don't live in Brooklyn. So we have 2.5 million residents, over 70 neighborhoods, depending upon who you ask. 180 ethnicities are represented. 130 countries. People hail from 130 countries. 90 languages are spoken. Brooklyn's population has increased about 12% since 1990. Race in Brooklyn and ethnicity. About 1/3 white, 1/3 black, about 1/5 Hispanic, and 10% Asian. This big other in that ethnicity, you saw there were 180 ethnicities, right? So there's that big 62%. And these are self-identifying, as are all census data, right? So about 15% African American, about 6.7% identified as Chinese. Religious responses, this is surmised to likely be the Jewish community, because when you look at languages spoken and places of birth, we can surmise that. Puerto Rican and then Italian. So places of birth, this was very interesting to me when we first looked at this. So China, after New York State, which is 50%, top five places of birth for Brooklynites are China, Jamaica, Haiti, the DR, and Puerto Rico. Poverty, this is always astounding to me. So 1/5 of Brooklynites live in poverty. 1/3 of Brooklyn's children live in poverty. And again, we want to talk about the scale of this. 1/5 of Brooklynites means that nearly 600,000 people are living in poverty. 1/3 of Brooklyn's children means that nearly 200,000 children are living in poverty. That's more than most people that populate most cities in the country. And again, we really want to drill this home when we're talking to outside funders and trying to bring money into the borough. Foreign born, to give a sense of the context, so about 13% of folks in the United States are foreign born. In Brooklyn, that's 3 times the amount. So this is nearly 1 million of Brooklynites are foreign born. Now this was so interesting, and I did not know this before we ran the data. Nearly 1/2 of Brooklyn's foreign born are not US citizens. So that really should speak to all of us about the need for particular services, folks who aren't getting services, etc. And 10% of Brooklyn's foreign born don't speak English. So again, looking at language barriers, literacy barriers related to that. Primary languages spoken at home. Okay, this is the participatory part. 53% speak English. Hello. 16.9 Spanish. You think this is easy, just wait, just wait. 6.7%. What do you think? Chinese? Yeah, that's right. Okay, 5.4%.
Russian.
Very good. Are you looking at
No.
He's close enough that he can see the small print.
I'll turn this way.
Okay, and last but not least. Great. Now I've had people who know say, some people say it's Yiddish, some people say it's Hebrew, and so I say, I don't know. I'll leave it up to the experts, but they have it as Yiddish in the census, so. Okay, so then we're looking at ability to speak English and language barriers. So about 53% of Brooklynites speak only English, and then 20% speak English very well. When we're looking at challenges and language barriers, we generally look at this quadrant here when we're doing analyses around language barriers. We are often asked, well, what is Brooklyn getting in terms of its fair share compared to Manhattan or compared to New York City as a whole? So this, for example, we were asked by the Heart of Brooklyn this question. So we looked at 716 arts and culture organizations in Brooklyn, and we looked at how much money was granted by 2 of the major funding sources to about 40% of Brooklyn's arts and culture organizations. And then we did a quick analysis of what that is per person in Brooklyn as compared to the rest of New York City. So for Brooklyn, it's $3.43 per person. And in New York City, it's twice that, at 6.26. So this is a compelling argument to be able to say, hey, where's our fair share? And now I have just a couple examples of mapping. This was for our Heart of Brooklyn project, and again, they wanted to look at language barriers and how they could do a better job of reaching out to folks with their communications, engaging them in their cultural programming. So we started with does anybody know what this map is called? It's really hard. I'll be very impressed. What type of map this is? This is called a choropleth map. And the choropleth maps are the maps that you see that have the darker squares grading and the gradation to lighter. And in this case, the darker squares, the squares are by census tract in the borough. Again, it's really important that we're looking at this granular level. And so the very dark orange are the percentages of residents who speak English less than very well by census tract. So these are areas to be flagged where there are big language barriers and issues. So I also want to point out, if we were to just look at the Brooklyn data, if we're looking at trends over time, in 2000 in Brooklyn, residents who speak English less than very well was at 23%. And then the next phase of data that we're looking at is called a 5-year estimate, and that only went up to 24.2%. So people would say that's about the same, right? So just keep that in mind. If we're only looking at Brooklyn data, not a lot of change in language barriers. Then the Heart of Brooklyn wanted us to put on the map their membership rate. So in Community District 6, we have a membership rate of 93.8 members per 1,000 residents. In Community District 4, there are only 2. So they wanted to see on the map where their membership was very high and where it was low. And then they wanted to align that with where the language barriers are, right? And then we circled, okay, here are the community districts with the highest percent of residents who speak English less than very well. Community District 11 at nearly 50%, as well as Community District 7, Community District 13, CD4, and CD15. Now, this is when we start to go, this is an area that they should really focus their programming on and their outreach, because there is a high percentage of residents who speak English less than very well. Their membership there is already low. This is how we work with our clients to narrow down where the areas are where they should be providing their services. Now, remember this increase here of less than 1%, 0.6%, if we were looking at all of Brooklyn? If we average the percents of residents who speak English less than very well for these 5 community districts, it's nearly 20% in terms of the increase. So a 20% increase in the problem. If we're only looking at Brooklyn, it's less than a 1% increase. If we're looking at the community district level, it's nearly 20% increase. So we'd be missing the need if we only look at the borough-wide level. And we can say this for youth and education indicators. We can say this for public safety indicators. We can say this for housing foreclosure indicators. The list goes on, and that's why it's so important that we have the information at the neighborhood level. And I'll go through this quickly. Again, we're looking at the percentage change for Spanish, Chinese, Russian, and we're looking at it. This is called a, what kind of map? Dot density. This is called a dot density map. So we're looking at, they said, okay, well, what languages are people speaking in these hotspots of need and language barriers? And so we wanted to look at that. So CD4, where we were looking before, is Spanish, Chinese, Russian, and then there's this interesting potpourri of languages spoken in Community District 11. So a lot of this information we kind of anecdotally know, but it's all out there somewhere. But what we do at Think Brooklyn is we step in and we say, okay, let's bring together the data in a customized way that it's going to serve your particular interests in your particular community districts. And then we also bring in the participatory approach so that we can get the perspective of people who are actually living, working, and going to school on the ground. Because the data are not the end of the story. They're only half of the story. And if we leave out the voices of the people who we're actually serving, then we're doing everyone a disservice. I want to take just a couple minutes to point out this here. It says the Brooklyn Neighborhood Reports. If everybody could hold up this, sorry for using here. Okay, so we have here for either the community the council member representatives or the council members themselves and the chairs, 2 different papers. We are hoping to replicate and update the Brooklyn neighborhood reports to all of New York City. So we've put in a discretionary funding proposal to do that for FY15, and we've submitted a proposal to every single city council member across New York City. If you all can reserve $5,000 of your discretionary funding per council member, then we can produce reports for, how many council members are there in New York City? 51. We can produce 51 of the 59 reports for all of New York City. Only $5,000 per council member. That's all we need of your discretionary funding. So if there's any way that you can pick whichever community district aligns best with your council district, then that would be absolutely fabulous. So what you have in front of you for council members and your representatives is our proposal. We've submitted this already officially. I just had a meeting with the Finance Division of the City Council this morning to talk about our proposal to the Speaker. We've presented to the Women's Caucus. We've put in a request to the Black and Latino Caucus. And I've outreached to every single council member in Brooklyn, and everybody's very, very busy. So now that I have a captive audience, I'm going to put in our pitch to you in person. So I will be following up. I would be delighted to come in and have a conversation with you about how we can make this work. And hey, if you want to sponsor 2 community district reports, that would be even better. Chairpersons of community boards. We are also, and I talked about this a little bit at the Borough Service Cabinet meeting with the district managers, but I didn't have these proposals yet. We're also looking to the community boards to sponsor one community district report per each community board. So we have some seed money from Con Edison to produce the All Brooklyn report. We're also working with some of our larger community-based organizations and our nonprofit partners in Brooklyn for sponsorship. And we would be absolutely thrilled if we could have the community boards work with us as well. So I'll be getting in touch with all of you and the district managers to that end. And so here are just 2 examples. For each borough, we produce an all borough report. So this is the one for all Brooklyn, and this has trend data in it from 1990, 2000, and then this is 2007, 2009. And what we'll do in the new reports is it'll be the most recent data, which for census data, that's the 3-year estimates of 2010, 2012. Then in each community district report, we have a comparison to the all Brooklyn data, which is in green. And then we have trend data for 2000 to whatever the most recent year was. In this case, it was 2007, 2009. So the data at this point for these reports are several years old. Our vision was to originally release them every 2 years. So it's 2012, it's now 2014. It would be fabulous to be able to do this year. And I would also say we are Think Brooklyn, and we want Brooklyn neighborhood reports to come out first. So we're going to be in a competition with other boroughs to see who can raise the most money to get these reports published. So that is the extent of my presentation. We would love to be able to work with you on other projects as well. And please feel free to get in touch. Let me know how we can support your important work here in Brooklyn. Are there any questions?
All right,
Okay.
great. Well, thank you very much, Gretchen. Really appreciate that. And I know we had a few people join us during the last presentation as well. So just for the record, we have Councilmember Menchaca's office is here, Councilmember Greenfield's office is here, and Councilmember Barron has joined us as well. Thank you very much, Councilwoman, for joining us. And with that, we're going to move to the final agenda item, which is a discussion of bylaws. We're not going to talk about the bylaws now, because I know everyone wants to get home. We're going to form we've talked about it we talked about it in the March meeting, and it came up again in the April meeting, the need for looking at our bylaws and considering necessary reforms, a number of different things, how we function, voting procedures, things like that. So we would like to organize a bylaws committee to work on this and report back to the entire Borough Board. There's already been some interest by some of the community board representatives to be a part of that process. So I'm going to just throw out an open call. If you are interested in participating in this, you can say so now or speak to me after the meeting, and we're going to have a bunch of offline conversations about different ideas, and we'll come back to the Borough Board at an appropriate time in the near future with some proposals for bylaw amendments. The bylaws to be amended, there needs to be 60-day notice. They need to be it's a bit of a long process, but we want to start the conversation now. The summer's coming up; it should be a little quieter. We should be able to have a nice series of meetings to kind of get some of this stuff done, and hopefully by the fall, it's my expectation, my hope, Borough President's hope, I should say, that we can have some revisions to the bylaws and function in a much more dynamic way. So.
Basic question of what bylaws are we looking at?
The bylaws that are in effect for the Borough Board, which were last amended February 6, 2007. I believe that a copy was sent out at one of our February meeting notice, but I can send out another copy to everyone if you'd like, so everyone has it, and then obviously we'll be looking at that pretty carefully as we consider revisions. So if anyone wants to speak up now to be part of that, please do. If not, see me after the meeting, and we'll go from there. CB4 and CB15 have both expressed an interest so far. Obviously, the Borough President's office will be on that as well. Council members' offices are more than welcome to join in. You are charter members of the Borough Board, so we want to be inclusive to everybody.
Question, I think for the good of the Borough Board, if you send it out one more time.
Absolutely.
It would not, you get so much stuff,
Absolutely.
It would help us, that would go to the top of the funnel.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Tells us about it.
That's absolutely right. I will no problem sending that out. I'll send that out tomorrow to everyone so you see it, and then I'll say I'll put it in the email to everyone. A week deadline. Let me know if you want to be part of that process. We want everyone's voices. We don't want a committee of 34 to do bylaws changes then to come back. So we want to keep it functioning. Obviously as with all committees. And on the last point, next that finishes the bylaws committee, and now we'll move on to old business. Any old business? I wanted to mention one thing. There was a question last month where we talked about schedule and whether we had to meet in the summer. And I said that the charter requires us to meet in the summer. I just want to reference the section of the charter that requires that so everyone is aware of it. I know no one wants to come here in the summertime, but we kind of have to. And I know in the past that there wasn't meetings, but they were not charter compliant. So section 85 of the New York City Charter, which applies specifically to Borough Board, subsection B3, B3 says the Borough Board shall adopt bylaws and meet at least once a month. At least once a month. So they anticipate meeting more than that. But no formal action of the board shall be taken except in a meeting open to the public. All of our meetings are open to the public. All of our meetings are publicly noticed. If you notice, we record them. They're webcast live to comply with city law, and they're posted on our website as well. And anything requiring a vote gets published in the city record to comply with the charter's requirements on that. So that's what tells us we have to meet July and August. But maybe someone will bring ice cream sandwiches for July and August. Who knows? So that's old business. Any new business? No new business? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All in favor? You guys are going to get out of here. Our next meeting is, I believe it's Tuesday, June 3rd. So thank you, everyone. See you then. Yes. Did I say? I meant to say 2 before.